So to be completely honest with you, I am not familiar with this song. I don't know if I've ever heard the song Little Toy Trains, but I did a little research on it to make sure I was like not like just not familiar with the title. And I saw that it came out in 1967, originally written for or written with Roger Miller, and then a couple different people had done covers. For example, Glenn Campbell did a cover. I believe Toby Keith did a cover. A bunch of different covers of it, which is a cool part about Christmas music in general. But Christmas music in particular, I feel like there's a lot of liberty for covers, particularly in the Christmas genre, which is interesting, more than other genres. Actually, that's just an interesting talking point of like, I wonder why, I mean, then again, you have Bob Dylan, who wrote so many songs that people ended up covering that I didn't even know half the songs were originally written by him. It's remarkable. But that point being, though, is Christmas music, I feel like, lends itself to being covered, and now we have a Pentatonix cover, which is cool. So I'm really looking forward to checking this out, which will actually be, I think, my first hearing of this song in general. They get the law of first mention of in terms of Little Toy Train. Which is interesting actually, because I had the Wikipedia pulled up actually, and another term for it. So it's actually called Old Toy Trains, and then it's literally said sometimes called or titled Little Toy Trains, which is just a little funny. So now I kind of want to go and check out some of the other versions, especially the Glenn Campbell version. But let's get right into this. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Jacob Restituto. I'm a musician from Northport, New York, and let's break down the song.
Little toy trains, little toy tracks, little toy drums coming from a sack, carried by a man dressed in white and red. Little boy, don't you think it's time you were in bed? So close your eyes, listen to the skies. All is calm, all is well. Soon you'll hear Kris Kringle and the jingle bells.
Let's pause this. There's a lot to talk about. Very interesting production here. The beginning, it sounds like we have trains on a track. Like I don't know, exactly how Kevin's necessarily doing it with the, his beatboxing, but it's almost like this, like just this chucking along of a train, which is a cool effect. And then that first chord by the group almost sounds like a train horn. The way it was like the doo, it was cool. Very cool production on here. Lyrics are pretty cool as well. Obviously, they weren't writing these lyrics. Let me just double check that they didn't do their own version. Yeah, okay, Roger Miller, exactly what I was talking about in the beginning. I just want to make sure that they didn't also happen to write a track called Little Toy Trains, and I was like making something completely up with the Roger, writing. I'm curious though, like, when did the concept of Santa Claus come about? In the world. I mean, this is the 60s. This was written. Obviously, it was the case. Santa was around. So when was, I'm curious. Anybody know the history on that? Of course I know like where old Saint Nick. That there was a guy. But when did it turn into the guy in the red suit? Like when was that? Point being though, I really like this. It's interesting as we continue along in their journey. What's cool about hearing something like this with the culmination of all these songs on this album, you hear a serious journey in their voices and in their production. And what I mean by that is like there is a maturity in their voices. There's deepness isn't the right word, but there's like a fullness in their voices, I would say. As well as in the production, whether it be their budget has increased, whether it be their where they record has changed, or their recording ability, and anything from mic placement to more expensive mics to just tone of learning how to tone your voice to certain environments, to certain songs. You could just hear, while the production on this is incredibly simple, there's not a lot going on. It feels full as compared to some of the earlier songs on the album, where they are, you could tell that they're from their a little earlier in their career. There is this there's a thinner aspect to it, if that makes sense. Well, they might be playing, or singing the same kind of concept where it might be the layered harmonies. There's a fullness that comes with it, and that I think just comes with professionalism and recording. And that's actually something you want to see in the music industry, because that means as an artist you're growing and developing and becoming better in your craft.
Little toy trains, little toy tracks,
Ooh,
little
Pentatonix.
toy drums coming from a sack.
That was cool. I'm sorry. I just literally I'll rewind it a little bit, but that was actually really cool. I was not expecting that. I was expecting the bass to move with the chords, so bum, 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 move with the chords. But instead, he's holding that drone note, creating some nice dissonance over the actual chord changes in there. So he's holding do while they're actually changing some chords, and it's creating a little bit of friction, which is cool, man.
Little toy drums coming from a sack.
Serious note.
Carried by men.
See, that's what I was
dressed
expecting.
in white and red. Little boy, don't you think it's time you were in bed? So close your eyes. Listen to the skies. All is calm, all is well. Soon you'll hear Kris Kringle and the jingle bells, bringing little toy trains.
I want to talk about Matt's bass here. What's really cool is when I first mentioned his bass in this song, we have it was this warm full tone, and what's cool about the voice is the way you're able to manipulate the tone from just singing. And what I mean by that is if you actually listen to it as the second kind of verse goes around, not the second part of this verse goes around, you'll hear he actually changes the tone where it's actually about a bit brighter. And you could do it by how you shape your mouth, in the sense that there was a bit more like a closed mouth hum, if that makes sense, as opposed to almost like a vocalized ah. For example, the people that versus an ah, you know what I mean, and or ah, same note, but just the resonance is different. Even within your mouth being closed, you can change you could change the resonance in that, just in the placement of your tongue and where it's sitting, the vibrating and resonating in your mouth. So it's cool to see that, just to kind of change. These little subtleties make such a big difference in the production, and the production then comes off in the motion. There's a phrase in the music industry that says that a group is only as good as their mix engineer, and what that means is the mix. If you could have a terrific group, but if you have a terrible mix engineer, the group is not going to sound good. So shout out to the mix engineer. I'm assuming based on the previous track record, it was Ed Boyer, who I've done a couple interviews with. So if you want to, I'll at least check out those interviews. But so you take the great mixing and the great production, and that's what leads to great emotion. It's two of the factors, and it's not the only two factors. Two factors that can lead to great emotion and feeling in this track. So it was cool. Very
Little
cool.
toy tracks, little toy drums,
Nice.
coming from a sack, carried by.
Interesting little what's it called? This is a tip. This would be a Jacob Restituto error. Putting what's it called? A spelling error coming from a sack.
Little toy drums coming from a sack,
This thing I would do in my lyrics by accident.
carried by a man dressed in white and red. Little boy, don't
Ooh.
you think it's time you were in bed? Little boy, don't you think it's time you were in bed?
Do you hear Kevin at the end? It sounded like the train tracks came back in. What a phenomenal way to end the album. I love the way that it has this this wholeness to it. It has this conclusiveness, if that makes sense. Like, play a song placement in an album is really something that I think is really a lot of artists think about. And like, what a way to end it, where it's like, shouldn't you be in bed? Is like this concept of like, I don't know, there's a closure to it, if that makes sense, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness in that.